Harvick Happy Hour.
Yes.
Uh, for me, caught me by surprise. I think it's a really good, started out as a podcast.
Mhm.
That's what you are doing now, and more.
Mhm.
But tell me about Harvick Happy Hour right now on FS1.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Working with Kevin, he is such a professional. He's very prepared. He always has a lot of good opinions. You can tell he's super invested, obviously, in the sport still and having conversations with people all the time to have, current information. He just drove these cars. So all of that insight is very current that he has on the driving side of things. And it just kind of came together. I had no idea that we were even going to really be doing this. At the beginning of the year, they called me in for some meetings and different things to talk to me about it. We did sort of a screen test, all of us together, myself, Kevin, and Mamba, Dylan Smith, the other guy on the show. And they were very happy with the initial screen test and the chemistry and the flow. So then it just started moving 100 miles an hour as the graphics packages were built, the set was built, everything was done. And we started right after Daytona. And it's been really fun for me because I've always wanted to be on a more laid back style racing show that's not, Race Hub and Race Day are very formatted, right? And you have a producer pretty much talking to you throughout the entire thing. This is way more conversational, way more laid back. Wherever we kind of want to take things is where we'll go. As soon as the checkered flag waves, I send a whole big list of storylines to Kevin and to Mamba and to our producer. And that's pretty much what they plug into the rundown. And that's kind of what we go off of. When we meet together on Mondays, I just make sure that there's not anything specific that Kevin is super passionate about that he really wants to hit on or whatever it is. It's his show. We are there to support him. And, Mamba obviously gives a lot of opinions as well. But it's been awesome. And I just love Kevin. I think he's great. So it was a pleasant surprise to be a part of it, really.
Really good to hear you say it was a pleasant surprise because now correct me if I'm wrong. I thought this was supposed to be kind of like a podcast because I felt like now I'm reading between the lines, but from my point, it was like, okay, everybody has podcasts, so Fox is gonna do a little podcast. It
Mhm.
was did it turn into a TV show?
Yes. I think after Race Hub and everything went away, there was
Yeah.
that airtime available now. And so since it had been doing so well and generating, good numbers, I think they thought, well, why don't we just actually clip it and create it for TV too? So that's essentially what they did. And it runs a couple times a week. It doesn't have a set time slot, so it's kind of all over the place. But I believe that was the reasoning behind putting it on TV once we no longer had the other racing content.
We call this Kenny Conversation because there's not a format. And just like you said, we can go anywhere we want.
Right.
I want to keep talking about this just for a minute because as you're talking, I'm listening intently. So we all got that phone call, that sad day where all of us might have been over 300 people. We all go to your studios, my studios, and I have not been with Fox for 3 or 4 years, and we're there the very last day. I
Yeah.
guess that was a couple months ago, and everybody was out of a job, and there were 4 people that were going to keep their job, and you're a dear friend of mine, and I asked you politely, "What's next for you?" And you told me. So
Hmm.
the question that I have as I'm listening to you was Harvick Happy Hour a pleasant surprise for you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Again, I didn't really know that was even on the table at the beginning of the season.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
When the digital, like basically one of my bosses in Los Angeles was like, "Hey, the digital crew is going to be out in Charlotte from LA. I want you to meet with them." I had no idea what it was about. I go in for the meeting. I still don't know what it's about. They're just asking me different questions about Kevin and all this stuff. And I'm like, what? I was so confused. And then I was like, what is this for? And they were like, oh, well, we're going to start a show, a podcast with him. And, you're in consideration for the host role. And I was like, oh, awesome. It just kind of went from there. But yeah, I mean, it's funny for me because Kevin was my very first interview I ever did for Speed Channel. So when I got hired after the moment you were talking about with Ackerson, I started on Race Hub, and the first assignment I had was to go interview Kevin Harvick at his charity golf event. So I get out there and I meet Josh Jones, his right-hand man, for the first
Mother
time.
function.
Mother function. I love him. He's a good friend of mine. And I was so nervous. Like, I'm telling you, I blacked out in that interview. I don't even know what he said because I was so just like, I don't know. I was young. I was only 24, and it was Kevin Harvick. He's pretty intimidating, to say the least. So anyways, it's just funny. You fast forward 13 years later, and now I'm on a show with him and, consider him a friend and really enjoy him as a colleague. So it's just wild how things work, full circle moments.